Okay, welcome everybody. We're here with Lorna Scott. Gosh, how many years have you been in Titans?
I'm coming up to finishing my third year in
Okay,
Titans. I
I'm
just,
starting my fifth year.
yeah, it
And
feels
what
like
is
forever.
Titans?
Titans Accelerator is a mastermind by Brian Kurt. So it's got a couple hundred people in. It meets two or three times a month and just brings amazing content every month. And that's where I met Lorna.
Yeah.
Cool.
Direct response marketing, that's most the basic reason that we get together, but there's a lot of business talked about and a lot of other kinds of
Oh,
development. So um, it's a great group.
well, interesting. I won't take your time now, but I'd love to learn more about it. And hi, Ted. I'm happy to see you. And I'm happy to meet you, Lorna. I haven't met you before.
Nice to
And
meet you.
then we have Rob.
Yep,
Elena, I love the pearls around your
Isn't
frame.
that someone taught me to do that? And I'm matching it with pearls around my neck. I
there
don't
we
Very
go.
how to do
nice.
it without choking myself. Okay,
Cool.
I'm ready.
Very elegant, very elegant.
Thank you. Well,
Well, Lorna,
if you saw the real office, that's why I have this fake one.
there you go.
I hear you on that.
So Lauren and I have been kind of chatting about the Epic Concord community and how people are, gosh, we're all so isolated now and lonely. And I talked to a lot of people. I said, what do you really like doing? What do you love doing? And a lot of people just can't answer the question, especially men. Like, what do you really love to do? And you took me through the passion test maybe 6 months ago or so,
Yeah.
and it was great. And you've been kind of seemed like you've been avoiding getting back into the passion test. And
Yeah.
our little mini mastermind group has kind of coerced you into, yeah, let's give this passion test thing a try. Because
Yeah.
marketing's changing, internet's changing, everything's changing really fast right now. And with AI, we're kind of losing control of what we can do to promote our stuff. So really kind of focusing on who you are and what you love doing and sharing that with your audience is what's working for me right now.
Hmm.
I think that's what works for most people when they've get it dialed in and even on the way when they're, figuring it out because it the passion test is simple and makes it very clear in a short amount of time. And then there's the what do you do with that afterwards. So there's still in that journey, it's life. We get to learn a lot about ourselves through that. But that's when it comes to building that audience and getting to know who really wants to hang out with you, the more that you are yourself and you're clear on that, the easier it becomes. You become the magnet as opposed to trying to be the claw or the clutch. What I've got in my mind is the little tool that my mom had to reach up to the top cupboard so that she, could kind of grab things out of the cupboard. Like we don't have to
Oh,
have that.
like a claw.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We're picking those things up off the floor that we can't bend over and grab.
Yeah, maybe she did that when I wasn't around. I don't know.
So why don't you share what the passion test is, how you came across it, and your journey to the passion test and what you've been through so much in the last few years.
Sure, I'd love to. It's interesting. I was thinking this morning about how did I really come to learn about the passion test? And I know it comes from somewhere in the transformational personal development that I was doing back in like 2005-ish, 2006-ish, somewhere in there, that it would have been brought into my world. And when I decided to take it and go through this process, um, it was a time when my husband had been diagnosed with colorectal cancer, and it had become terminal. So I knew that we were in for a rough ride, and I was determined to not lose myself going through that. I met and supervised a woman who was so bitter after her husband died. Like 10 years later, she was still so bitter, and I didn't want to be that person. Um, I wanted to still be at least part of who I was. I was going to be different, but I wanted to keep one toe into me during that process. So I did the passion test because I was absolutely convinced that the last thing I wanted to do was to be a caregiver. Like I had my, not selfishly, but I had my own dreams. I did not want to get sunk into that caregiver role. And lo and behold, the number one passion for me was caring and supporting my husband. Um, and when I embraced that, it changed our world. He lived for another 3 years. But we were 47. He passed away when he was 50. And I believe that we lived the best retirement we could in those 3 years, and likely more than some people live in their whole lifetime of retirement. I was lucky because he let me do this for him. Um, I pretty much ran the show, but I still was always had him in mind of what it was all focused on him and what he wanted for those last 3 years of his life, which we didn't even know he'd have that long. And we had um, did an amazing time. The only thing that he really didn't get to do was to see the B-52s. We couldn't get into like line up a tour, and he was in the newspaper industry and advertising, and he wanted to be a publisher of a newspaper, and he didn't get to do that. And if I have any regret, it's that I didn't ask the publisher at the time that he was working for just letting him be the publisher for a day, like we do for kids. But he likely wouldn't have taken that anyway because he would want it to be real. But anyway, that is how I came across the passion test, and it absolutely changed my life, and it's why I'm so passionate about it, because it isn't about like whether you're facing something as dire as a spouse or a family member dying. It Any significant time in your life where you're wondering about what do I do next and kind of feeling lost, it's a perfect tool for it. And it's also for anyone, like at any point in life, the workshops, when I was doing this more active, the workshops that people would come to, these weren't people who were, really in huge, um, in this big spot of like, I need to change my whole life. They were people who were like, I don't know how to be myself because I'm lost because I'm looking after my kids. I'm lost because my kids are going to school and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I can't, I'm trying to save for university, or they're in university, whatever it is, they're in jobs that they don't like. I mean, that's a big one. And that's one of the things that's led the passion test to have two pieces to it. One is your core passions. So this is about what you want in your life and what's most important to you. And you might think that you know what's most important to you. And yet I've seen like almost 100% of the time where there's something that just clicks for someone that they go, oh my goodness, I am not focused on this part of my life that is important to me. I am doing all these other things because I need to do them first before I can do what's important to me. And I've fallen into that more than once. So, that's been part of my experience. Oh, it helps get the clarity in a very simple, powerful way that doesn't take very long. Um, and yet you get that when you get that clarity, you accomplish more. You're actually doing less, but accomplishing more. There's a quote by, I'm just going to read it because Maharishi Mahesh, who's a yogi, that says that when you have clarity, I mean, I love how he whittles it down because you might already tell that I use a lot of words. I'm glad I don't spend $1,000 for every word I say or write because I would like be in deep trouble. Um, but he says clarity is see the job, do the job, and stay out of misery. And I think that is just such a nice, powerful quote. But what they found when they were doing the passion test is looking at employees and employee engagement and what happens in the workplace. And at the time, At the time that I was certified in 2013, the stat was about 85% of employees are dissatisfied. They're not passionate about their jobs. 2023, Forbes magazine published the Zipits.com report, which says that 49% of the people were very satisfied in the workplace, but only 20% were passionate. So there's a lot of people who are not passionate in the workplace. And when I look at what that leads to for um, being like coming out of a workplace, coming out of like maybe corporate, going into retirement, is that chances are most people have come from where they're not passionate, and then they maybe know what they want to do, but it gets really confusing, especially once they've left that workplace. And they've got all this empty space, open space to be whoever they want to be, but it gets overwhelming. And we come from the isolation. I think our identity is what really can get in the way with that. Um,
I've seen
now,
that a lot in the tech industry. I've worked there for years, and we were so passionate. We loved our jobs. And then you kind of reach a point where the company got too big and it got more political than startup feel. And then there's other jobs I've had where people just hate being there. It was this, we had a micromanager boss that would like look over your shoulder every second. It was really hard to be passionate about your job because everything you did, he'd say, "Oh, no, you got to do it this way." So I've
yeah,
kind of seen it
well,
both ways.
and especially, I mean, I've not been a business person my whole life. I've spent more years in being employed by other people. And one of the things that I did, because I refused to stay where I wasn't happy. Um, and I think that's also, it might have been part of my entrepreneurial thing, because I marvel at people that can work somewhere for 25 years. I think 6.5 was the longest I worked for anybody. Now, part of that was because I moved. And when I look back on the moves um, and being able to choose what it was important to me, I did that even before I knew the passion test in some ways, because I just refused to work um, in horrible workplaces. So I know the power of setting that intention. And the three parts to the passion test are intention, attention, and no tension. And you may have heard this, it's part of personal development, transformational development. We talk about setting intentions. It's not a mystery anymore. Um, but when we actually decide what we choose to create, and that's one of the things that I like about the passion test, is that it isn't just about setting the intention that today I'm going to do this, or this week I'm going to do this, or when I'm ready to start the business, this is what it's going to be. That's one intention. But when you can think of it that you are actually creating, like this is what you choose to create. And of course, it works in both ways. You can choose to create the life you love, or you choose to create a life you don't love. And it sound, I mean, sometimes I would hear that and go, of course, I want to choose the life that I love, but I also have lived a life that I didn't love and found it very difficult to get out of it. And that was more recently. I've had many years and intense of transformational personal development training and coaching for some of the top personal development people in the world, and I still found myself falling after COVID. It was likely a year after we got out of all the lockdowns and everything before I even realized that I had really slipped down, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm totally lost and have struggled with that for a couple of years. So I get what it's like to be in that place of not knowing, and knowing that there's something else there, and knowing that there's more that I can do. And that's part of me coming back to doing the passion test and some of the transformational work because I love it. I see the changes that happen with people, sometimes like in a short amount of time. And coming back to the passion test has just helped me be back in that space. And I think that's one of the ways that I can help and understand other people even better than I could when I was certified, because I've been through that time of being able to choose to create the life that I love, and then having something happen where I didn't choose the life that I love. Um,
I think we all kind of went through that reset after the COVID. Like everybody they didn't leave home much, or when they did, they didn't dress up or they'd wear sweatpants and just
yeah,
they didn't care about what they looked like. And now
yeah,
we're kind of getting back to, oh gosh, people aren't wearing yoga pants everywhere and sweatpants. They're actually dressing up and they care about what they look like. Well,
yeah. Oh, that I think that there is that isolation really took a toll. And um, when I think about the workplace and the number of people who were working from home, so they're isolated. And then there was still other people, like my daughter was in a job where she wasn't allowed to work from home. Like she still had to go into the office. And but she was isolated because they had to be isolated in the office, and all the people she supervised were working from home. So she still felt that isolation. Um, so I think that's part of where we come from and why the passion test is so important if you're moving into a business, or even if you've started your business, to get even more clarity and being able to zone in on what you want and who you want to serve. I mean, that's one of the first pieces. How can you help them? What are your gifts? That's one of the other things with the passion test. One of the tenets of it is that when you do the passion test and go through it and start to live and choose to create your life in the way that you love, is that it helps you to live and share your gifts. So it gives you that permission to do what makes you feel good, where instead of having that manager over top of your shoulder, like Ted said, micromanaging, um, I thought I had it made for one of the jobs that um, I took. It was another time when I just knew what I didn't like, and I was determined to get somewhere that I would feel better. My husband had started the chemo and radiation, and he had 5 weeks of chemo and radiation. An hour and a half away from where we lived, and he had to be there Monday to Friday. He couldn't come back home. The doctors wanted him to stay there for the week. So I asked for time off with no pay because I hadn't worked for long enough there to get 5 weeks vacation or sick time. Or I had 4 days of sick time. I said, "Can I take the rest at no pay?" And they refused it. I went to my doctor. I got a sick note. I ended up with 2 weeks off sick so I could be with him, because eventually he couldn't drive himself to the hospital from where we were staying in Calgary. And I mean, we were told he had a 50-50 chance of living 5 years. It was a little stressful.
yeah.
And so, the day that they told me that I either had to go back to work 3 times a week, which meant that I would drive him that hour and a half in on Sunday, drive home again, work Monday. I can't remember how it was, but I was going to be making that 3 hour round trip 3 times a week. And his parents came out to help, and I did go back to work, but I vowed that I wasn't ever going to be in that position again, that I would have to ask permission to be with someone that I loved who was seriously ill. So I took a job that seemed really awesome. It was in victim services. That's kind of where I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie and had worked in 911, worked in a women's shelter. It seemed to be great, except that I didn't have any contact with people because the volunteers all came in at night. And I ended up driving, like crying 20 hours or 20 minutes all the way to work. Cried 20 minutes going home from that job. And that's what I don't want to see people have to do. that
Yeah.
there's choices. And I didn't have the passion test at that point. I just knew I had to leave. And at some point, I finally found a job that was absolutely the best that I could have. And it was with the Canadian Red Cross, and they were amazing to work for. Um, so, having that passion test, and I don't want to keep it a mystery about what it is, but it's something that until you see it and experience it, it's difficult to really explain. And we don't have time to demonstrate it here. It, um, but when you have that intention and then you put your attention on it, so that's where your thoughts go, that's where your mind goes. You may have heard, where your energy goes where your thoughts are. Um, that's what shows up in your life is what you put the attention on.
Hmm.
And then you have no tension, which is the hardest step. That's where we release it, we surrender to that's going to be this or something better. But we do everything we can before we do that. It's not like the law of attraction, the movie The Secret kind of led everyone to believe that we just could sit on our couch and visualize and all these things were going to happen. When really actually the last six letters in attract out of the law of attraction, the last six letters are action. You have to be in action to be able to make those things come true. And visualization certainly helps with that as well. But knowing that you're doing everything you can and it could be this or something better. And sometimes the something better is amazing. Um, so it's being able to say yes to what you love and then being able to elegantly say no to what isn't what lights you up. It
Mhm.
helps you, it's a great decision-making tool. Whenever you have the choice, opportunity, or decision, you always choose in favor of your passions and have the belief that that's all going to work out. Even sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. But when you have that clarity and you can make those decisions, life becomes a lot easier and a lot happier and a lot more joy. And all of that brings more joy and more happiness.
So how
So,
does the test work? Do people fill out a form or do you ask questions?
question. Yeah. So I mean, I can share a little bit about that. So what we do with the passion test is you write, when I'm working with business owners, we start with the core passions. So you write out the 10, a list of at least 10 um, things that you would finish the sentence when my life is ideal, I am. And then you would write a list of 10 things that you would finish that sentence. You could write a list of 10 or 15 or like whatever, however long they are. I've had people do lists. I think 15 was the most. And when we went through it, we found that there were some duplicates, like they kind of meant the same thing. So we were able to get it down. And then we just choose 10 because the process itself is a comparison process of to be able to identify which ones are most important to you. And then we also score them afterwards to see how much you're actually living that in your life. And there are some times where people are living their passions fully. And that's wonderful. Then we would go on to, that's when it's nice to have the list of 15. That's what happened with Jack Canfield when he did it first with Janet. Janet Bray Atwood and Chris Atwood are the creators of the Passion Test. I should make sure I give credit to them. I didn't create it. Um, I'm a certified facilitator, but I didn't create it. And when Jack did it, he was living his passions already, the top 10. So they went into the next one, which was being able to be with a group of other transformational leaders, kind of like a bigger mastermind group. His group is like over 100 people now. But it was to create that group, and that's when he created his Transformational Leadership Council. So it works even for somebody who's already really dialed in. And I don't know that there's many people as dialed in as Jack or Janet. I mean, a few, obviously, likely at least 100, and maybe that means 1,000, but they're pretty high level in what brings them joy in living it. Um, So that's that going through the core passions, and that covers like all areas of your life. We like to look at health, your relationships, your career, finances, um, your like personal, like just what you like to do for fun or interest, hobbies, and some legacy contribution. What are some of the things like in to start with picking one from each area of that helps people make their list. When we go into the business passions, it's basically the same kind of idea. It's listing out, at least trying to get at least 10, not if we start with 10. And it's like when my business life is ideal, I am, and then making that list. And sometimes when we do both, on the core passions, a lot of times the financial and money piece will come in, and when it actually belongs in the business part. So sometimes there's some juggling after, which is just another level of clarity. One of the things about money um, is that will often show up on both core passions, like being able to have money. And what's important when you think about passions and money and goals is that sometimes money isn't the goal, it's what money will bring us. And there are people who are very passionate about money. Um, like when I think about, it's one of our sharks, but Shark Tank,
Yeah.
movie Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary. Kevin
Mm.
O'Leary is passionate about money. Like he is almost green like a dollar bill,
Yeah.
uh, or $1 million bill or whatever it is. But he is passionate about money. Donald Trump is passionate about money. I'm not passionate about money. Like I want money. I need money. But I'm not passionate about money. So there's a place to put that in as a marker, which is kind of like a goal, like a milepost, milestone. That's a way that you can tell that you're living your passion, but it isn't necessarily your passion. And that's where some of the clarity comes in with the passion test, because what we think we're passionate about, is not what we're passionate about. It's a marker, it's evidence that we're living our passion. And so being able to be clear on that helps us make the decisions and take the steps in the right direction so that we can get those markers and achieve the goals, but we're doing it living our passions, not falling into what someone else is telling us to do or what we think we should do. Um, Likely everyone can relate to somebody who went into being the doctor or the lawyer because that's what their parents wanted to them, or they had to, or they were forced to, or maybe even they wanted to. Um, Maybe that's what they wanted to start with. I know a guy, he worked one day as a lawyer. After his 7 or 8 years in school, he worked one day and he quit. He went and did something else. Um, so be having that clarity just makes such a big difference. And please, like, what if there's any questions, I'm
So how do you
happy.
score after you got put down? So when I started coaching years ago, they gave us this form. Here's your values. And there's like 50 values listed, and people would pick the ones they wanted,
Yeah,
not necessarily the ones they actually were living.
Mm.
So
yeah.
how about for you with the
Just
money thing? How do you rate you're maybe a 2 on the scale of 1 to 10 for money?
if I
Or
was
Kevin
working with
O'Leary's a 10 out
somebody,
of 10?
yeah, I mean, if I was working with someone, I would do some exploration on whether money really is a passion or not. Um,
We can't live
Chances
without
are,
money. It's a
yeah,
necessity, but like you said, some people just love to make more money.
yeah. And I've never worked with anyone that does that. I likely don't attract that person. So I've never worked with someone that is truly passionate about money. The way that I would see it work for people, and the way that I've seen it is the people that I've done the core passions and business passions, is that it would likely end up on the list for the business passions. So it would show up as, I want to make um, $100,000 a year, or whatever it might be, $50,000 a month, wherever they're at, that they want to, that might be that, when my business life is ideal, that's what I'm making. But it seldom comes up to when we do the comparison and come up with the top five passions, which I think I missed when I talked about that before. When we go through the comparisons, we come up with the top five. And it isn't to say that the other five aren't passions in some ways, but they're not as important to you right now. And if we try to focus on 10 things, we get nowhere. So we want to get down to what's most important to us today. And then those five that don't make that are in the bottom five often end up to be markers. So they become the evidence. Not all the time, but a lot of times they do. They say, okay, well, when I'm living my passion number three, that I am, um, it might be that I have a team of six people who are supporting me so that I have the freedom to go and be and do what I want to do. And the marker of that would be I am making $250,000 a year. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it starts to match that piece. And then when we score the passions in those top five, it's a scale of well, 1 to 5. So 5 is that you're living the passion fully, and 1 is that it's nowhere evidence in your life. No, we do a scale. Sorry, 10. There's another part that's a 5. The 10, we do a 0 to 10 scale. Um, So yeah, so and anything that's like an 8 and above, then for the most part, I would say you're pretty well living the passion. It's maybe not 10, but if you're living it at an 8, 9, or 10, then there really isn't a whole lot more you can do to put attention on it. So then you just keep doing what you're doing. Anything between a 4 and a 7 would be, this is, we're going to put a little bit of attention on it, and then anything that's between a 1 and a 4, then often I use reverse the question, and if somebody says it's a 2, sometimes I ask why is it so high, so that at least they can see that there is something that they're doing it. And
Can I
then, yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I have to jump in a couple of minutes, but this is so interesting, and I guess I'll hear the recording. Uh, the recording will be available, Ted?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. But I just wanted to say that before COVID, I'm a consultant and I do training and especially with corporates. And one of the exercises in one of my courses is I put people in teams. These might be, mid-level or higher even in a corporation. And when I put them in a group to do a task, the task is create a business. They have like 30 minutes to do it. I mean, it's just like a made up task. And every single time, every one of them has an idea that has nothing to do with the corporation that they're currently in. I want to open a flower shop, or, it's always something which is their dream, their passion, and like nothing at all. I feel like instead of helping them adjust to their corporate life, I should be inciting them to leave.
Well,
So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I mean, because everyone expresses a dream that is, I want to work with children. I mean, just many, many different things that have nothing to do with what they're currently doing. And
yeah.
they feel stuck, Ted, when you talk to people who are still stuck in corporate life, is that they want out. Now,
Yeah.
some people are lucky enough to, retire with a nice income and then have the privilege to, think about what is their passion. And maybe they're young enough to get uh, to look toward doing that. But I think what you're talking about is um, if you need to stay where you are in terms of your job, what, how can you look at what is your passion to either leave or incorporate some of that into your life, it sounds like.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, I think that would be a way to look at it. And that's what I was going to say is that, in that case, I would wonder whether there was something someplace within their current job, if that's what they wanted to do, that they could incorporate what it is that they love, like what they're thinking
Exactly.
about, and bringing it into their corporate life. And there
Yeah,
is a bigger, like there's some passion test facilitators who do a lot of work within the corporations to help the corporations have the employees who are passionate to work there. And it comes to hearing what's happening with the employees. I've not worked with big corporations, so I can't give any
yeah.
stories on that, but I know they've done a lot of work.
Well,
There
this
there are
sounds
some.
very, very interesting. And thank you for inviting me. And I will catch up with the recording. I just want to say one last thing. Lorna, you are Canadian. Is it Lorna or Laura?
Lorna.
You are Canadian, right? I picked it
Yes,
up. You had me at hello. So where
I
are you?
am. Medicine Hat, Alberta.
Okay, I'm in Montreal.
Oh, okay. Oh, yay.
Long way away, but happy
Yeah,
to. Yeah, we're in Canada.
yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Go
Thank
Canadians.
you for this, and I'd love to learn more, and I will. Just sorry, I have to go. I have to get ready
Yeah,
for a 2 o'clock.
sure.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Elena.
Thank you
much.
for being here.
Thank you. Bye bye, Rob.
Does anybody else have any questions?
So I was just going to say, Lorna, I mean, this is a small group, and I've been taking some furious notes because things that you say, um, when you think of attraction, the final word is action, right? I mean, those are things that we can use. You said you're an adrenaline junkie, which is just amazing to me because you are so calm and even, and clearly, you radiate brilliance in what you do. And so I can only imagine, as an adrenaline junkie, you're like the loaded spring, right? You're ready to go and just kind of explode. And I did. So I grew up in Canada as well. So you've attracted Canadians, Ted. And I lived in Calgary for
Oh,
a couple of years during the Olympics. So when you were talking about your husband's illness and being an hour and a half away, I'm like, okay, so Calgary, we're not going as far as Edmonton. You're looking at, Red Deer or,
yeah.
Okotoks or, you kind of look that area
Yeah,
around. And
we were in Red Deer at the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, the passion test itself, individuals, small groups, teams, how do you approach that? Do you consider yourself a coach? Are you a facilitator? How do you charge for this? How do people manifest this?
Um, I the actual passion test itself, going through the tool, is facilitated with some coaching that goes along with it. There's it, I break it up into two sessions for personal, like we do the core passions and then work on the business passions. I was trying to do both of them at the same time, but it was really helpful for people to have a break in between so that because once they got the clarity on their core passions, then some of the business passions changed, and it just was helpful to keep them separate. And along with that comes creating what we call markers, which are the evidence. How will you know when you're living that passion? And for some things like that, some things can be a goal that you might achieve in a few months or a year. Some of them are bigger. One of my passions was to write and publish my book on caregiving for my husband. That took a couple of years to get that all, well, yeah, 2 years. It was 2 years for me to get it from the time that I started writing the first draft till it was published. So, we want to look at the evidence then. How do I know that I'm living that passion and what am I doing along the way? And then coming up with I can go into further coaching with it and looking at how to implement it and stay on track. Right now, I've got a pilot program that starts with the 2 sessions of the passion test, and then is 4 weeks of implementation and accountability coaching. So we're in touch Monday to Friday, like daily, just to keep on track. It has really helped people stay away from the distractions and getting pulled away. And one person said it's kind of like taking your car into the shop for the alignment every week. You know, you hit a couple of bumps along the road and you're out that way. It can be done. I've done like live workshops, with groups of people. I haven't done the online because I kind of went away from it during the online piece, but there are ways to do it online as well. Um, so because I'm coming back to this, it's coming back to doing this for other people, I guess is what it is. Um, it's been part of my life for a long time now, 18 years or something, 17 years. So, I love working one-on-one with people, and I love the group experience as well. Uh, it is, yeah, it just every time, Rob, every time I do this, I go, is this really going to make a difference for them this time? Like, because it's so simple and profound. And like every time I'm blown away by the insight that people get and the changes they made. One of my recent clients went from working weekends and evenings, like just kind of he worked from home, kind of dragging the stuff. Oh, I can just do that on the weekend, to not working weekends and evenings anymore and getting more done. Spending more time with family, having more quality time with his family, and focusing on that, and focusing on his clients and getting the right clients and doing the right work during the day. Um, so it makes a big difference for people.
I
Um,
think it makes a difference. Look, we all have our blinders on. We think, oh, this is my life. This is what I love doing. But then you take this test. It's like, oh, yeah. What about this and that? That takes the blinders off.
yeah, yeah, you're right. It takes the blinders off.
So, what's something you learned when you first took the passion test? Something you unexpectedly learned about yourself or what your passions were?
Well, for me, that I was to care and support for my husband because I was fighting that every inch of the way. And I just realized, actually, Ted, my mom and my 94-year-old mom and stepdad just moved to Medicine Hat in September. And there's a lot more needs there than anybody thought there would be. And I've been fighting it. I did it again. I've been fighting it and fighting it. And finally, I just went, you know what? I want them here. I was the one that asked them to come here. And I knew I'd be the only child here to look after them. And I just need to quit fighting it. And you know what? It's been a lot more peaceful since I went. I've got more boundaries. Like I've realized I had to set up the boundaries, and that's the other part of knowing where that passion is being able to set up the boundaries to stay within, um, living that and not getting and still not getting pulled away where you don't need to be. Uh, and that's I think the important part for me has been um, knowing that I've got other passions for me to work on, and they are just as important. And when you release it, when I surrender, like I mentioned earlier, when I surrender, this is all I can do. Um, things have changed and it's much better. So, it's a lifelong process, but being able to know when you wake up in the morning that this is what I need to do, and this is what's going to fuel me, this is what's going to light me up, and this is what's going to make the world better for other people because I'm living my passions. it makes the day a whole lot better.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of a quote I heard years ago about Fred Astaire. Said, "Where do you find these great dancers you always work with?" And his answer was like amazing. He said, "I don't look for people that want to dance. I look for people that have to dance."
Mm, yeah.
It's like kind of this helps you uncover those kind of things.
Yeah. That question that's often asked, what if money were no object, what would you do?
Yeah,
And I mean, that's a great question. And it was a great question for me until the answer was, I don't know.
right.
And, it was only through, help in having somebody else help me through that, um, that I was able to come out of that. It was a really deep, dark hole a couple of years ago. Um, so, it's happy to be back. I'm happy to be back doing what I'm doing. And interesting, you meant the adrenaline rush, Rod. My adrenaline has only started to come back again. I used all of it up when I was caregiving for my husband. That
Yeah.
was, and well, I didn't use it all up. I kept enough to get through to my book and then to work with family caregivers. And that's likely could be a whole other session on passion, because my passion was to make the world a better place for family caregivers. And I still have my big dream is that there's like little mini retreat centers all around the world where they can just someday pop in for coffee, and have somebody else there, that whether you sit there and talk or you just sit there with each other, but it's not formalized, it's not counseling, it's just where you can be, where people understand, and you get a little bit of a break. And maybe there are trainings and workshops. That would be what I would love to do. That's what I used to do. I used to bring this work to family caregivers for in their role, but there's no business in it, and I try real hard for that. But I still have a dream that the world can be a better place for them. Um, and that I just will find a different way to do it. How I was doing it wasn't the right way.
You really
Um,
are passionate about this and you're really great at it. So it's going to work out.
yeah. Oh, I like I believe more than I ever have. So thank you for letting me be vulnerable too, because I can't be here and say that, my life has been wonderful for the last 25 years because I did the passion test. And um,
Right. You could lie and tell us that.
well, I could lie, but I don't think I'm a good liar.
Lorna, Lorna, may I ask what your contact information is and if there's any reading available to find out more about the passion test and the workshops that you offer?
Yeah, you can find me at lornascott.com. You can go to my website, but there's very little there right now. I actually this it's kind of weird, but this is I hoarded my lornascott.com, and this is the first time that I've actually put it out. I did lornamscott.com because it took me a while to get my own name in a .com. So it's rebuilding, and because this, I'm coming out, publicly with this. It's just been a few months that yeah, there's really not a lot on the website and it needs some work. I'm passionate about helping people, and like some of that back end stuff will get done too. Um, the best is to email me. If you want, you can to know more about the passion test, go to thepassiontest.com. And they do have the quiz on there where you can do it yourself, and they'll send you some information about what your passions are. And I know that the power is in having somebody facilitate for you, that you still stay, in my opinion, you stay in your own head when you're doing it yourself. That being able to relax and have somebody guide you just increases that power. But you can find out Janet's story. She's got a wonderful story. Um, they're all about love and fuzziness, like just warm fuzzies. Really, it's all based in love. So it's a wonderful community, and I'm happy to set up a time um, to arrange to take you through the
When
tests.
you do the test, I find a lot of times you put down what you want to be, and then the coaching helps you like, okay, what do you really want or what you're really
Yeah.
passionate about.
It pushes you into what you feel as
Yeah.
opposed to what you think.
Yeah.
And I don't know about anyone else, but some, like I do tend to think, well, if I have that, then I can have that and that and that and that. Like, but first I need, I'm passionate about getting a master business administration, which I'm not. But somebody might put that in because that will get them the job with the company that they want. And if they get that job, then they're making that much money and then they can, whatever. That's when they can buy the house that they really want, as opposed to saying, my passion is having this house. Um, and focusing on that as opposed to the strings that it will take that takes you off the passionate path. Um,
Yeah, that's
Well,
very
Laura,
helpful.
I'm definitely going to reach out to you. Just, so just be aware because just from some of the things that you have said, sparks of ways that maybe I can throw some stuff your way in
Sure.
how you can speed up your process.
It'd be wonderful.
As I work with a large insurance company which does long-term care insurance. I know a lot of care providers, and they have a relationship with AARP, which has a lot of information for caregivers, but it's something that continues to grow. And so, I mean, I've got a lot of ideas for you, and I also want
Well,
to
thank you.
circle back with some things that you've sparked in my head. So I will definitely be in touch.
Thank you. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
And Mark, you were saying something?
Oh, no, just that I thought this was very uh, enlightening and eye-opening. It was also very serendipitous. Ted, I'm a friend and colleague of Derek Howard,
Oh,
and
okay.
I saw him reach out to you on something, and then you posted in LinkedIn that you were having this uh, session today, and I'm recently retired. I was just joking with Derek. Greetings from the land of the recently retired, and thinking about my next act. Gathering books and doing the same kind of things. And here, this whole thing just dropped out of the ether. So I saw it as a sign that maybe I should listen in today. So I'm definitely interested in knowing more and finding out about this.
Cool.
It's
When
funny, I haven't heard from Derek in a long time. We used to coach our kids' soccer teams 25 years ago. And
There
all
you
of a sudden he
go.
pops up on LinkedIn commenting on this. Very interesting.
what you put your attention on grows. You just did it, Mark.
Yeah. No, it resonated what you were saying that if you do something for 40 years, I'm a trial lawyer like Derek, and I there are parts of it that I love and was very passionate about. The parts that I don't, I always think about, well, I'm more than just a lawyer, so I'm going to be these other things. And I think that's probably one way of divorcing yourself from if you're in a really bad job situation. You think, well, my worth is not what I do for work. I work to live. I don't live to work.
Right.
But for me, I was fortunate that I did 90% of what I did, but there was a lot of delayed gratification, a lot of things that I put aside because of work demands. So I am privileged now. I have time to explore these things, and I don't want to squander it. I want to make the most of it.
Great. Great to
Exactly.
hear.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you have any final comments? Wrap it up.
I think just go get clear, live your life, like find the way that you can live and share your gifts the way that you want to. It's a joyous place to be. And I'm just grateful. Thank you, Ted, for having me, and thank you for all the discussion we had. And knowing that it makes a difference really touches my heart. So you have inspired me, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Laura.
much, Laura. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ted.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. And we have the Mastermind Book Club on Thursday, so keep an
Thursday.
eye on your emails for that. That's
Have a
every,
good week,
Yeah, see you
folks.
there.
All right.
we'll see you. Thanks, everybody.